Joel Klatt bringing it today. All right, so let's. You like that?
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
I like that.
I
came bearing gifts of compliments to you.
Oh, that's so kind. So you probably got some, cyclone bomb you're going to drop on me later. I know how you suck up to me early to drop the hammer late.
That's true.
Okay, so let's go. Let's just start with this. Let's go to the college football rankings.
Okay, last night
came
out.
Klattster, we got Georgia 1, Bama 2, Oregon 3, Ohio State 4. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I guess so. I think that I probably have more of a problem outside of that. I still don't think Bama should be number 2, but that's fine. I mean, trying to rank teams after Georgia is incredibly difficult because there's no team that you can say like, well, they deserve clearly to be the number 2 team in the country. I just don't think that there is a clear number 2 team in the country. I think you probably think Alabama is that team. I'm not convinced, in particular with their struggles on the offensive line, their lack of running game against LSU. But then if you look after the 4, you just see these wild inaccuracies and things in this ranking.
They bother you.
That chips at their credibility. Putting Michigan over Michigan State 9 days after Michigan State beat the Wolverines is absurd.
Well, it's a go either way game. Okay,
but it happened. It happened.
Okay,
that's
and then
absurd.
Michigan State
it chips away at their credibility.
See, I disagree. So here's a prime example. So Michigan State should be above them. They were. And then Michigan State goes and gets rolled, which, by the way, you could almost see it happening because Purdue does that to people. And then, so Michigan doesn't have a loss on their schedule that is like, wow. So in the end, I'm going to put Michigan is an inch above them. I don't think that's staining credibility. You know the way I
think it does because the game has to matter. It has to matter. When you have the similar record, it has to matter more than the, quote, eye test. And what is the game that you're pointing to for the Michigan Wolverines that you're saying to yourself, like, see, like they've got an incredibly high ceiling? They haven't had one of those. They've been pretty consistent. They've had a good year. They blew it and lost the game to Michigan State, and that game has to matter. That's one of them. Auburn being ranked where they're at and Penn State not being ranked.
Okay, you know
we
what?
saw that game play out on the field. That's a joke. Wisconsin's ranked and Penn State's not. We saw that game play out. I mean, so the committee, here's the thing. The trust, folks, in life is very, very difficult to build. Very difficult to build.
Yeah.
It's like a sculpture that's a piece of art. It's very difficult to build, not easy, and it can be broken in an instant. And they have broken the trust.
Okay.
Like their credibility is in shambles. It's an absurd ranking.
Okay, I want everybody. I'm going to change your world. Watch. So here's the way I look at Christmas because I got 30 kids. If I get the number 1 present right, who gives a rip what I put in the stockings?
See, that's where you're wrong.
Okay, so you care about the stockings. To me, get the top 4 right.
But gifts are individual. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go finish.
Get the top 4 right. Who gives a rip about 12? You're going to be playing in some bowl game I won't watch. So I care about when my wife and I talk about this. What is the one thing that connects with the kids? They'll open up and go, oh, God, you listen to me. You hear me. What I put in their stockings, you got a Kit Kat, you got a battery. Who gives a rip? That's not going to make Christmas. The stocking is irrelevant. That's just like, oh, God, here at the nickel store, I found something.
Okay.
You deeply care about the present, but, God, you lose a lot of sleep on the stocking.
Well, first of all, your analogy loses all credibility.
Great analogy.
Well, okay, so two things. One is kids are stupid, so they only are going to focus on one gift. You all know that. Parents, I'm the parents of 3. Like, that's just the way that it is. And these rankings, you can't look at them as a Christmas gift. You have to look at them as a recipe or a construction project, wherein everything matters in how you're building to the outcome. See, you're saying, like, it doesn't matter. Your house doesn't matter. The foundation doesn't matter at all. It just matters if the front door looks really good. Well, and then it blows down, and the big bad wolf comes over and it blows down. This is a recipe. You build your way into the top 4 based on what's happening behind it. And so when they artificially rank teams in places that they shouldn't, then they're artificially building one resume over the other. And then that impacts this holy grail of the top 4. Like, if it's right, then I don't care. But it's only right when they build the recipe behind it in order to prop it up in the top 4.
But I mean, how many, again, let's play to the masses, not people who are experts and like you have literally 6,000 coaches on your speed dial. To the masses, we look at it and we think Georgia, Bama, Oregon, Ohio State. That's about right. It's subjective. I mean, God, it's all subjective.
That's part of the problem is that we need more objective criteria. And you know what? I rail on the playoff a lot, don't I? I mean, I do. So you know what?
I think
I want to be fair.
I
want to be fair.
Piece of art.
By the way, and let me backtrack for a moment. Do you know what makes you so good at your job?
It's a long list, but go ahead.
What makes Colin so good,
yeah.
And all of you, I hear from you, I travel around this country, and I hear from you, and every one of you talk about that this is where you enjoy seeing me. You don't talk about anything other than my appearances on this show because you have a lot of fans out there. And all of them talk about, what I love about Colin, he'll admit when he's wrong. I mean, to a person, they talk about that segment where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. It's a brilliant segment that you do. And it establishes your credibility because now the listener, you viewer, you fan at home, understand that Colin will admit when he's wrong. So your credibility stays high because they understand that you're just not going to blow them up. So what
you're saying is
this committee will never admit when they've made a mistake. And they get out there and they start talking themselves into these positions that are indefensible.
How about this? I criticize Roger Goodell. And I think he's a really good commissioner. The rest of the media is always hammering him. And I'm like, yeah, it's hard. Commissioner's hard. Nobody likes Manfred. Nobody likes Silver. Nobody likes Bettman. And I said they should create where he's really butchered it is some like domestic violence situations. I'm like, create a committee with women on it. Like, get out of that space. And you would love Goodell because that's what he butchers, right? Like, why is a commissioner the only guy?
Here's what I'm saying. A fix, right? Like
my fix is create a committee, put women on it, get out of that. Okay.
So make it less subjective and more objective.
So this. Why does college football release it and then don't go on television and try to describe it?
That's a problem because you're trying to describe something and defend something that's indefensible.
Well, and it's all murky and subjective.
Yes.
And you put some guy up there, some AD from Arkansas State. And
it's Iowa, actually. It's Gary Barta, your favorite. So we're going down a road that's like right up your alley here with the Iowa fans. So you know what? You're right. And the committee's job as it's currently constructed is impossible because it's too subjective. So let's bring up. I'll tell you what. I've got it ready. I've got a fix. Let's fix it. All right, so rather than me sit here and rail on it, let's start fixing college football.
With each one, I'll discuss. So give me one at a time.
Number one, the first thing that we need to do in college football to help fix the postseason is remove divisions from every conference.
Agreed. Number two.
You pit the top two teams against each other in the conference championship game. It fixes a lot of the scheduling imbalances, so on and so forth. We need to dilute the playoff committee's rankings. 13 people in a room. I've talked about this a lot. That's far too few variables. We need to add a poll, add a second committee, add a third committee, add a computer that starts to dilute and add more variables to the equation so that we get wild biases off. Remember, we need to sit in the fat of the bell curve, not on the edges. That's number two. Number three, the postseason needs to diversify TV partnerships.
What's that mean?
Grow more networks involved. They need to grow revenue by having more networks involved. They need to allow for more trust and less conspiracy theories in the system by having more eyeballs and more partners in the postseason. Okay. You don't hear conspiracy theories in the NFL because everybody has access to the postseason. We all, by the way, every single network builds towards the Super Bowl because you know you're going to have it in subsequent years.
Good point.
So it's just better when there's more TV partnerships. And number four, establish more objective criteria. Here's the deal, folks. The college football playoff needs to expand. It should expand. And the College Football Playoff Board of Governors need to make that decision soon before December 1st in order for it to happen like 2024. It needs to expand past 8, and it needs to expand somewhere less than 16. And here's why, okay? That's not just some wild number out there. If you go past 6, you're giving automatic berths to some number of conference champions. 8 doesn't allow for enough at-large teams, and it also does not give buys in the first round of the playoff. If you don't give buys, you're not incentivizing top-end conference championship games like, say, Bama, Georgia.
Yeah.
You don't incentivize them to play hard because there's no reason why they would need to win. If you attach a first-round bye and maybe even a home field advantage in the playoffs to that game, now you're incentivizing even the top-end games just as much as you would the back-end games. So my theory is that the sweet spot is either 12 or 14 because you need the first-round bye to incentivize the top-end games at the end of the regular season. So
I'm gonna throw you a curveball.
Okay.
And, they call it a yacker. Anyway, that's a baseball.
The curve is actually the hammer.
Oh, all right. Missed out on that one. So, is a former minor league baseball pitcher. So, I'm going to throw something else at you because I like to simplify things for the American consumer.
Yes.
So, you talked about me moving off stuff and admitting I'm wrong. And I often...
I think it's important. I think it's one of the best things you do.
Okay, I rail on the American public.
It takes you a long time because there's so much, but it's one of the best things you do.
So, I'm going to give the audience an example of where I have moved off something.
Okay.
For 20 years, I don't expand the college football playoff.
Same, Colin.
Here's why I moved off it. You got a very complex labyrinth of reasons. I've got one. Yours is literally a maze of intellect. Mine is just finger painting. So there's two problems in college football. Again, I just see two. We got about three teams dominating the sport. I don't know if you can solve that. The second one I believe is solvable. And this is why I moved off the rigidity of my, 4 teams is it. We got a lack of big game problem. We don't have enough Oklahoma against Oregon, Ohio State, Oregon, Auburn, Oregon, LSU, Wisconsin a few years ago, Notre Dame, Georgia. How do you solve it? If you've got, this morning I looked at this. Prep is my middle name. So I took the top 8 teams.
Okay.
I took the top 8 teams. Georgia, Bama, Oregon, Ohio State, Cincinnati, Michigan, Michigan State, Oklahoma. Look at the 4 games that would create.
That'd be great.
They'd be I would get Georgia, Oklahoma. Now, Georgia would knock the you-know-what out of them, but I'd watch the game.
Now, I would just move it to 12.
Okay.
And then you're going to have 4 buys. So the top 4 champions get a bye, and we're going to play on campus. And I think that incentivizes the late great game. So now, because remember now, I don't want Peyton Manning sitting in week 16 in college football, the analogy, now, right? I need Georgia and Alabama to play that SEC championship game for real with something on the line.
The other thing that is important in this, now you could say to yourself, looking at my finger painting simplistic argument, which is I just want more Oregon against Michigan.
Okay.
I just want Bama against Michigan State because I don't think this is a great Bama team. I think that's a game. So I just want more big games.
Okay.
That's when I pour the cocktail, I sit up there on a Saturday afternoon, late afternoon.
Yes,
not
of
early,
course, not early.
Like 5:30 p.m. I just want to watch a good football game, right? So these are also playoff games, meaning they'd be better than bowl games because star players can now just sit out of a bowl game and go, I'm going to be a number 1 pick.
That's right.
Thibodeau for Oregon.
He's playing.
They're going to play in that game.
That's right. So is Aiden Hutchinson.
So it's like the star players are incentivized to play, and I'm a consumer. I get a bunch of, I want to watch. By the way, Ohio State, Cincinnati.
Well,
that's fantastic.
By the way, I'll go to your first problem. You said that there's only 3 teams that are kind of sucking the air out of college football right now, and that's true. Part of that is because there's only a 4-team playoff. So there's only so many programs that can define themselves as ultimately successful in our sport. That's one. And number 2, we haven't come up with something in college football that takes non-conference scheduling away from athletic directors, which is archaic and crazy. We need to create an overarching governing body that not only controls the postseason, but also the non-conference, so that we can say to teams that finish first, you win your conference one year, you're going to play conference champions from other conferences the next year, just like the NFL does with the first place schedule and so on and so forth. That would be a way to drive parity in college football and keep more fan bases engaged and also increase the opportunity for upward mobility of programs to build into something better.
Okay, one more topic. We're late here, but I think this is valuable, is that I have this kind of worldview on college football programs. You're either a 6-year rebuild or a 3-year. Okay, so even Nick Saban lost to Louisiana Monroe his first year and Utah his second. So the USC right now, if a good coach goes in, that's 3 years.
Correct.
Alabama, Ohio State. Now, Oklahoma, Bob Stoops won a natty his second year. But there's about 8 to 10 of them. You probably can do it in 2, but those are 3-year rebuilds.
Yep.
And then there's what I would call 6-year rebuilds. Like Chip Kelly, UCLA Stadium's not on campus. They're the second biggest college football brand in their city. I think Nebraska is a 6-year rebuild, not a 3-year. So everybody wants Scott Frost out. And my takeaway was, no, Nebraska finally got it right because he's in year 4. And people go, well, they're not winning. Well, it's a 6-year rebuild. That's right. I believe if you watch Nebraska play this year, games are getting closer.
Way closer.
So I was for bringing this guy back.
I thought it was a great decision. And remember, their new athletic director is Trev Alberts.
That's right.
Who's a Nebraska legend. Now, they didn't actually cross paths and play together, but each of them are legends in their own right in the Nebraska community. Nebraska absolutely got this right, keeping Scott Frost. They are light years better than what they were 2 and 3 years ago.
No question.
They've played 4 teams in the CFP's top 8. 4. And the first 3 of them, they lost by a total of 13, and then they were only down by 6 to Ohio State before Ohio State kicked that late field goal. They are way better. And by the way, all you have to do, talk to the other coaches in the conference. Ryan Day, in our conversations with him last week, he was like, man, I haven't been this nervous for a game in a long time. This is going to be, and he said, and I quote, one of, if not the best team we've faced this year. They've faced Oregon. They've faced Penn State. He was very complimentary of what Nebraska was doing, in particular on defense, and I think that they did the right thing with Scott. Now, he made an adjustment to his contract in order to make some more room for assistants that he's now going to hire after making adjustments on his offensive staff.
Harbaugh did a similar thing. Harbaugh. So, you guys, all you fans out there, you all want to fire the coaches. You got to cut, like OBJ, what are you?
What are you?
There's about 8 programs in the country, maybe 10. You're a 3-year rebuild. And then the rest of you are 6 years in Nebraska.
Or more. Some are 6 or more. And think about this. Now Nebraska doesn't have a genuine tie to Texas. In 2010-11,
that's right.
The last time they were really competing on the top end of their conference, they had 20 players from Texas. Now they have 7. Why? Because
they're in the wrong conference.
They're you could say, the wrong conference.
Yeah. All right, Klatt. I thought we made
there was a lot of strides made there
in today's thing. I will say this though. You're spending a lot of time on the stockings. They're just M&Ms, Kit Kats. That's all that's in that stuff. That's what Auburn is this year. They're a Kit Kat bar. You can't worry. They're not like something you get at Best Buy.
You know what you're worried about?
What?
The Christmas gift that gets thrown out in 2 months. I'm worried about building houses that last forever.
Oh, boy. Jeez. Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.